I'm just looking at Kellyanne Conway's Twitter photo of her kids. Oh my God, I want to gobble them up. They're so cute. Oh, I haven't seen this picture. It's awesome. Oh my gosh, you have to go to her Twitter page and look. She has one boy and 3 girls. And oh my gosh, I see both George and Kellyanne and these kids, and they're just gorgeous. Kellyanne Conway, longtime friend, counselor to the president, and love the photo, Kellyanne. It's so cute. We got to get our kids together.
You are so sweet, Laura. We do. They're all 7 of them will live in the same town soon, and this is the way you and I are pushing up against these demographic challenges. Just procreate away. But thanks for pretending any of them look like me, because I feel like the poorly paid surrogate.
Oh no!
I feel like they all look like George.
Well, they're all gorgeous. They're all gorgeous.
So
let's talk about what's going on the latest in healthcare. The Democrats were out yesterday, and all of your friends on MSNBC this morning were saying that the Republicans' plan would lead to 15 million Americans losing their health care. What's your response to that charge?
That charge is false. Just remember, nobody on TV is ever under oath, Laura. It's a good reminder. And secondly, I don't think they've got much credibility with the American people. I mean, this is the entrenched minority party now, in large part because they try to scare people every day with false statistics and narratives like that. Over President Obama's watch, the Democrats lost over 1,000 state legislative, U.S. Senate, U.S. House, governor seats. And it's because of things like this, trying to scare people instead of trying to inform them. So let's just try to inform them. Why is the president making good on his promise to repeal and replace Obamacare? Everybody knows it's been a disaster. It was supposed to lower costs. Costs have exploded. We've got hundreds of millions of dollars in mandates and penalties. It's crushing our overall economy. And you've got people who are trying to access, quote, affordable health care and finding out it's unaffordable. I mean, even if they, quote, have access to it, they literally can't afford the premiums. So they end up paying that penalty or the tax. The president was right last Tuesday in his joint address when he said mandating that Americans buy government-run health care was never a good idea. So we also need to put Medicaid on a sustainable path. We also need to equalize sort of the tax treatment, those who get employer-provided health insurance and those who are going to buy it through the tax credits here. And the one thing I do want your listeners to know, because I think it was lost earlier in the week, I call it information underload in a world of information overload, Laura. There are 3 phases to repealing and replacing Obamacare, and the president has signaled his commitment to try to get those done in very short order. But the first one is the one that gets rid of the mandates and penalties, expands the health savings accounts, tries to give the states the flexibility so that they're bringing premiums down and helping their most vulnerable citizens. It's the second piece that is the regulatory relief that allows Secretary Price, by way of his pen, to get regulatory reforms that are more stabilizing and more free market, frankly, for our insurance markets, and improving the choices for the patient so that we don't have all these abuses in the enrollment process. You go and buy health insurance when you're sick and not before that. The third piece is the one that I think interests and animates a lot of your listeners, a lot of the grassroots supporters who were there for Trump-Pence. That's the one, that's the interstate portability. And why are there 3 phases? Well, that's subject to 60 votes in the Senate. The first phase is subject to 50. The second one is regulatory, HHS Secretary Tom Price in nature. And the third one is subject to 60 votes. So that's different. It's the portability, you allowing to buy and sell health insurance across state lines.
But you'll not get those 60 votes, right? Kellyanne, I don't mean to interrupt. But
well, it depends what else is in there. You're not going to get the Democrats, Laura, to vote for repeal of Obamacare, but this is part of the replacement. And it's also the piece that allows the small businesses to band together through association health plans, has the med-mal tort reform. 2 fully recovered lawyers on the phone here should appreciate that one. And then, of course, the drug pricing. But
do you think that it would just obviously there's a lot of conservative opposition. I have some concerns about the fact that this reform, repeal and replace as it is, won't really drive the cost of insurance, Kellyanne, or the cost of health care itself down. In fact, it'll perpetuate a lot of the high premiums and high deductible policies that we currently have. And that by the time you get to this phase 3, that's just going to be that's just going to be hanging around as well. We'll try to run on that in 2018 or 2020. but that's kind of a pipe dream. And meanwhile, all these other things are going to start, delivering real pain to people. And why not just do the full repeal that the House and Senate voted on in 2015? Both of them passed it, and have the president sign it, and then go to the American people with the full panoply of the cross-state lines, drug companies, antitrust exemption, and really do the full court press that way. Wouldn't that be a purer way to go here?
Laura, the fact is we already have Obamacare, though. We've been living with it for 7 years, and there are many people who rely upon upwards of 20 million people. So what I'm told by our policy folks here is, in response to that, one is even the 2015 bill that you're referencing leaves in place chunks of Obamacare, does not repeal it completely root and branch. Secondly, it's that period, that transition period through repealing it and replacing it that could hurt people who currently rely upon it. And what the president said in his joint session, which he obviously is applying to this whole process, Laura, is there are 5 principles undergirding his plan. But the second one he mentioned is that those who were promised they can keep their health care under Obamacare are going to have a smooth transition if they rely upon the exchanges. And we can't forget that. In other words, this isn't hypothetical. It's not something we want to start now. It's that there are Americans currently enrolled in health care exchanges who rely upon it. If you repealed it without replacing it in quick succession, they could be left behind.
Yeah, I think what Cotton said to us the other day was that plan itself had a 2-year, you had a 2-year waiting period, before you would lose the plan. But I don't think we're going to get much farther on this topic. But let's move on to the obsession that the left has on the staffing at the White House, which we've been ridiculing for weeks on this show because it's funny and everybody needs a laugh on a Friday. This was Joe Scarborough was it today? Oh, today. Let's listen.
Rex Tillerson repeatedly left out of one meeting after another. He can't even get the number 2 that he wants over at the State Department. And at this point, it's starting to look like it's deliberate. They are trying to keep him on the sidelines because, as David Ignatius writes in the Washington Post this morning, that leaves more power to Trump's closest aides, people like Steve Bannon. So maybe Americans might want to ask whether they feel more comfortable with Steve Bannon running U.S. foreign policy or Rex Tillerson.
Well, give us some clarity on these haywire charges being made over there at the various cable networks, not just MSNBC, by the way.
Yeah, so without responding to any one charge or any one host or any one network, I would just say more globally here, the president is very happy with the team he has around him. We had a conversation about that just last night, we, the senior team, and him. And he also is very happy with his cabinet. I mean, it is a point of pride for him that he assembled this candidate in the likeness that he thinks each department and agency needs to help effectuate the agenda that this country needs at this moment. And Rex Tillerson at State is a highly valued member of the president's cabinet, as you know, Laura. He's representing this nation and this president, more importantly, this nation around the globe, and has a track record of success in being in many, many countries over the course of decades at ExxonMobil. And so I will tell you that there's always these palace intrigue stories and charges at the beginning of every administration. I don't think it's any different for us, except that there are some, again, not talking about anybody specifically on TV, in print, on blog, just generally speaking, there are folks who have never stopped covering Donald Trump unfairly, from the time he was a candidate to being the nominee to the president-elect.
I think they're obsessed. I mean, I think it's a derangement. Yeah, I think.
And it's also, yeah, that's right. But it's also a matter, Laura, of, the president commands loyalty, but he's also very loyal. And he knows, he sees how things are working as somebody who speaks to many people in a given day. He takes many different inputs before he makes a decision. And that begins with his cabinet and his vice president and certainly his senior team. But he's had all these listening sessions and roundtables because he's genuinely interested in best practices and frustration/aspirations/solutions that everybody from the coal miners who had a very deleterious regulation rolled back by him recently, to the tech CEOs, to the health insurer CEOs. I mean, the community banks yesterday, they were so thrilled to be here and actually have a conversation. So that's just what he's doing. And I'll tell you, if you worked on the Trump campaign or in the Trump orbit, you've become impervious to naysayers and critics. And so, and he's the best of all at that.
We really appreciate it. Kellyanne Conway, thank you so much for joining us on the Laura Ingraham Show.